Welcome to Dr. Pepper and Friends, where grit, grace, and wholehearted living come together. And now, here's Dr. Pepper.
Hi friends, and welcome back to Dr. Pepper and Friends, where grit and grace and wholehearted living come together. My name is Pepper, Pratt, and today we're going to talk about something that almost all of us experience, and that is that moment where we realize that we've overreacted, okay? There's been something that's happened, and we've had this big response that we don't really understand. And usually the reason behind that is because trauma has been hiding in plain sight. So maybe you've noticed yourself overreacting. Maybe you've noticed yourself shutting down in a conversation or in a conflict, or going numb when life feels overwhelming and just wondered, why in the world do I do this? What is wrong with me, right? Well, the truth is nothing's really wrong with you. You're experiencing some automatic survival patterns that your nervous system may have learned a long time ago. And often they show up through different parts of us, protective parts that work really hard to keep us safe. So you're going to hear a term today, and you may be familiar with it, or it may be new to you. One of the things that we use at the Pratt Clinic is called internal family systems therapy. And it is just the idea that we all have these parts. And I think we're familiar with this. There have been times that we've said, okay, on one hand, this, I feel this way. On another hand, I feel this way. On one hand, I want to do this. On another hand, I want to do that, right? So some of these parts of us are trying to be at the control levers and manage our life. Others are holding this old pain that has been burdening us for a really long time. And others just want to be understood. So today we're going to be joined by my co-host Jennie Haywood. She's a seasoned therapist who specializes in trauma recovery and helps people to reconnect with all of their parts. And we're going to explore how these hidden traumas respond to us in a way and how they've developed. We're going to talk about how they can show up in everyday reactions and relationships, and just the fact that we're not crazy and we're not broken, we're just human, right? We're humans who carry wounds with us at times. We're going to take a look at some simple tools to bring some increased awareness and compassion to our internal worlds. So stick around. This conversation will be gentle, practical, and full of hope. And stick around on the other side, because there's going to be something that I offer to you for free that may be something that gives you a little bit more movement down the road. So let's head on over to the office studio now. Okay, and welcome in. This is another episode of Dr. Pepper and Friends, and today I have an old friend, Jennie Haywood, and she is a licensed professional counselor, mental health service provider, all-star mom, wife, and just a good friend that we've known each other and worked together for a very long time. And one of my go-to people that knows as much about trauma as anybody that I know. So I'm really grateful that she's with us. And she's going to be kind of a co-host from time to time. So she's not just a guest. She's going to help us out, and you'll see her often. So welcome, Jennie. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So we are talking about trauma is something that hides in plain sight sometimes. And when we talk about that, what do we really mean when we say that trauma can be something that hides in plain sight?
So basically, trauma hiding in plain sight is we see the symptoms of trauma in everyday life. What we're doing, just in everyday things, you'll see things that maybe just don't make sense, the way people respond to a situation that doesn't make sense. I say most likely there's trauma underneath that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes, and what I often will say is, anytime you come up on something where you know that a thimbleful of response is appropriate, but you give a truckload instead,
right?
That's probably a good sign of it.
Right.
Yeah. I want to get you to tell me an example in a second too, but let me kind of give this example. Mm-hmm. I tell this to clients often, but when we've been married probably less than 2 years, we were in our new house. My wife had gone to work. and she worked a 12-hour shift. She came back, and I'd gone all out, man. I'd cleaned the house up. I'd made dinner. I had Cajun chicken with green beans and almonds and wild rice. Okay, now this was 36 years ago, and I remember these details, right? So I'd made all of this. And she said, "Oh, this looks really nice." I even had a candle on the table. And she said, "This looks nice." And she said, "Let me go freshen up." And she went and freshened up, and she came back and she sat down and she started to eat. And she took a bite of the Cajun chicken. I don't know that I'd ever made that before. I had my version of Cajun chicken was some Tony Chachere's seasoning on regular chicken in the oven. That was it, right? Yeah. So nothing terribly fancy, but it had a little spice to it, right? And she sat down. She said, "Ooh, I can't eat this." And she scraped off the spice and said, "This is too hot." And then she went ahead and ate the rest of the meal and kind of bragged on me and said thank you. I was very grateful and all that. So none of you can know this about me, but I don't do anger. I'm not really an angry person. I'm just for me to experience that emotion, I kind of pay attention to that.
Right.
So when she said that, though, I just noticed in my body, the cartoon character that has the red line that starts at their feet, and when they're getting angry, it rises all the way up, and then steam comes out their ears. That was the way I was feeling in this moment, and I knew that was a thimbleful of circumstances, but I was having this truckload of response. And I kind of thought about it for a couple of hours and literally just prayed and said, Lord, what's going on here? And then it just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, okay? It was a trauma memory, okay? And this memory goes back to when I was a teenager. The life message from my stepdad was, "You screwed up. You screwed up. You'd screw up a wet dream," except he didn't say that. And I mean, when she said that, when she said, "Ooh, this is too hot, I can't eat it," and she ate it, what I heard was, "You screwed up. You screw up everything," right? Yes. That was the experience. So that was kind of an example of it, just hiding in Cajun chicken.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I have one that I use a lot that's a little less intense, but I think it really helps us understand. I had touched a burner on the stove one time when I was little, and obviously it hurt really bad. And now, we're at 40 years later, anytime I have to clean under the burner of a stove, I have to touch it, and I have to use a towel to pull it off. And even though rationally I know the stove hasn't been on for days, it's not hot, but there's something in my brain that needs that comfort and reassurance that I'm going to be okay, and I have to protect myself from this. And so it just overgeneralizes things to an extreme sometimes. Yeah. And
when we see this in somebody else, we think, what's wrong with them?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And then when we experience it in our own bodies, it feels like it's shrouded in all this mystery. So what's going on in our nervous system when this happens?
So basically, we have this set way that we're designed to protect ourselves from pain. So when we experience something that's really intense, something that's really painful, our brain logs that away in our memory, and it says, "I don't want that to happen again." And if it does happen again, even if it's like I said, it overgeneralizes. So even if something even remotely familiar to that pain occurs, our alarm system's gonna go off, and these parts are gonna come out of us.
Yeah, so we even have brain structures that are a part of our central nervous system that don't check in with the thinking part of our brain, that just react, and anything, it doesn't have to be the exact same thing.
Right.
It can be just an approximation of something that happened before that just kind of takes us back without us realizing we're being taken back. And it's like, you need to react and react big, react in this really big way right now, or something really bad's going to happen.
Right. And I tell people it's kind of like a trap door closes on our rational thought when that happens. It's gone. You can't access it.
Yeah, and we may even be ashamed of the way that we react at times. There may be things that are embarrassing that we do. We may have regrets about that. But on the inside, those brain structures, those old parts of our brain are actually trying to help us.
Yes.
You know, they're
Right.
trying to protect us from pain and to organize us in some kind of way that keeps that from happening. But that's why, you know, if when we were 8 years old when we had something bad happen, that's why we look like an 8-year-old when we're responding sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So Jennie, you and I both work with internal family systems therapy, and I mentioned this in the intro a little bit earlier, but can you talk a little bit about just how what it means to have these parts, and in trauma work, one of the things we talk about a lot is ambivalence, and ambivalence is just from a trauma memory. It leaves us with there's this part of me that wants to do this other part of me that wants to do that, and that's kind of how internal family systems therapy works. So tell us a little bit about kind of the parts, and how can we help people to understand how that gets to their reactions.
Right. Okay. So this is like a newer thing that I've learned about with internal family systems, and I think it's just absolutely fascinating and helpful, especially when it comes to trauma. So basically, you have your three main parts. You have the firefighters, the managers, and the exiles. Mm-hmm. So our firefighters are people who, when the pain has been triggered, our firefighters are there to put it out. Mm-hmm. So that might be self-harm, that might be engaging in some kind of substance abuse, abusing food, pornography use,
rage,
yes, some kind of physical abuse, emotional abuse, like all those things. It's those parts that we really don't like to see, but they're coming out and they are doing a job. And that's sometimes what we don't understand. Like the job they're doing is not bad. The behavior is what is the problem. Like the way they've decided to handle that situation. But what they're trying to do is bring the pain back down.
Yeah. So if you can just kind of imagine in your brain, like when you have something come up, maybe your wife says she doesn't like the chicken, or whatever it may be, and you don't understand why you're having this super strong reaction on the inside of you. It's almost like there's this part of you that's on the inside of your brain that hears the alarm go off and jumps out of bed and slides down the pole into the boots and onto the big red fire truck and comes to rescue you from that emotional discomfort and that emotional pain. However, whatever it takes to get you out of that situation, we don't do emotional discomfort and pain. So if that means substances, if that means rage, if that means all of these other things, that's kind of what it does. And like any other good firefighter, firefighters don't really care about the collateral damage that take place as long as they're rescuing you from that emotional pain in that moment.
They're putting the fire out. That's their one and only goal.
Putting the fire out. And if the door frame gets busted in and there's a flood in the apartment, nobody really cares because the life has been saved.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one kind of part. What about others?
Okay. So the other part is the managers. And these are parts that people tend to like to see a lot of times because they're the one who's overworking, overdoing, just overcommitting, overpleasing, just going over the top. And so what they're trying to do is keep the pain from happening. So we tend to see those more often. The firefighters come out kind of unexpectedly at times. The managers tend to just kind of stay there a lot. Especially when we've experienced trauma and we've experienced some kind of harm in our past, they're working hard to keep that from happening. So definitely, like I've experienced a manager who could accomplish anything. Like, I mean, that manager like got me through grad school, even though I was like severely depressed and dealing with a lot of things, and I still somehow managed to get all A's. So just they can seem like really valuable to us, but are also harmful to us because we're overcommitting, we're overdoing, and it's going to catch up to us eventually.
Yeah, and sometimes the way to know the difference between, what is that manager part, which so like firefighters hear the alarm and they rescue us once the pain is there, okay?
Right. Yeah.
But the manager parts are the ones that are constantly organizing to keep us from being in a situation where that pain's going to come up, right?
Yeah.
So like the people-pleasing part or the peacemaking part, those are good things.
Right.
Okay,
yeah,
times,
exactly.
Right?
We don't see them as problematic.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you come into my office and I'm being professional, I need to be professional. That's a good thing. But the difference is between feeling like a sense of panic and acting on that sense of panic that if I don't act this way, then something bad's going to happen versus, this is just being professional, right? So there's sometimes there's a fine line between the two, but it's important for us to be able to recognize that even with behaviors that might be considered positive, trauma can hide there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Especially whenever it's at our own expense. Like we're working so hard to do all these other things that it's affecting us internally. The firefighters tend to affect everybody around us. Yeah. The managers tend to affect us.
Right. But the firefighters are protecting us from something, okay? Right. The managers are protecting us from something.
Yes.
Which takes us to another part.
The third part. So they're both working hard in their own ways to protect our exiles. Our exiles are the wounded parts of us. So we might have them at different ages, different types, different looks to them, different characteristics, different traits. But our exiles are the parts that are wounded, that haven't been heard, haven't healed, haven't been able to process the pain.
Yeah. And the thing is, people live most of their lives this way. Yeah. And yet there is a toll that is taken. So what is the potential cost for us not seeing this trauma that hides in plain sight and being able to heal from that trauma? What does it cost us?
Yeah. So it's going to cost, like I said, with the managers, it tends to cost more for us internally. You're going to have a lot of anxiety, depression, panic attacks. Things just kind of come out of nowhere. Burnout is a big one, I think, with the managers. But so it affects us and our health and our just our well-being overall. And then the firefighters, like I said, affect more that outside, our friendships, our marriages, our relationships with children, with parents, with lots of different people. It's going to have an impact on our work and whether we can maintain a job or how we interact with coworkers.
And judges and police officers. And,
when it comes to an extreme, like anybody in authority, how do we handle that?
So if someone wants to start understanding this and befriending these parts in a way that they're not at the control levers, what would be some good first steps of kind of starting that journey?
I have found naming the parts is a really good way to kind of, you separate from the identity of that part. It's a part, it's in there, it's in me, but it's not who I am. Right. It's a part that does some things for me. So being able to separate from that a little bit by giving them a name, maybe even figuring out like what do they look like, what kind of energy do they put off, things like that is helpful.
Yeah, I had one guy that identified one of his parts was rage, and he was just, abused by adults when he was a kid, and when he got big enough, he had made these promises to himself: if I ever get big enough, I'm not gonna stand for this anymore. And we'll just call him Jimmy, okay? But he got to where he was big enough, and just started fighting all the time. When he was a teenager, started fighting. And as it turned out, that really ushered him into a peer group, and he found a lot of acceptance in that. And they even nicknamed him Jimmy Knuckles. Right? Well, fast forward 40 years, okay, that doesn't work as well for him, anymore when that rage comes out. But he was able to understand Jimmy Knuckles is a part of him still. Okay, he's never gone anywhere, and he's never going anywhere. Okay, so he learned to recognize the signs that Jimmy Knuckles was starting to kind of come around a little bit, and learned how to tell Jimmy Knuckles, just look, it's okay. I'm like 45 now. I can handle what's going on in front of me, and you've served me well, but I don't need you in this moment. I have other coping skills on board. Right?
Yeah. So that's another big part is communicating with those parts, because a lot of times they don't know who we are or how old we are or where we are or what we know. And so being able to separate from that and check in with them and be like, hey, actually, you know, for me, I check in with my parts. I'm like, actually, I'm a therapist, and and I give them a lot of information, and they're like, oh, okay, and it actually it works. I don't even know why it works, but it's really helpful when we do that.
Yeah. And so much of the battle is won in just noticing, just learning to notice and tune into your own heart, tune into your own body, because sometimes your body will tell you before you even recognize it at an emotional or an intellectual level. And that may be your fists are clenching, or you're tensing up, or you're already thinking about that routine that you might engage in that's going to give you some relief, whether it's substances or pornography or whatever it may be.
Right.
But it takes grit to do this. It takes grace to do this. But where we're headed is toward living in a way where we're integrated and we're living out of a healed heart.
Right. Yeah. So what the final part, I guess, is the self, and it's the God in us self that is needs to be the one in charge of managing the parts, so to speak. And so when we can find out, like, this is who I really am and all these parts, we can all work together. And that's kind of where the family system part comes in, is that we all work together as a family instead of everybody kind of just doing their own thing and nobody's communicating with anybody and so we work at a goal together instead of everybody doing their own thing.
Yeah. So 2 fun movies if you want a little more that you can have a lot of fun with and just invest yourself in, but it'd be entertaining in and of its own right. Inside Out, both of the Inside Out movies,
Absolutely.
Inside Out 1 and 2, watch those. You may have gone and seen those with your kids, but you may not have gone and looked at it through the lens of trauma. But that would be another one. Two good movies. But then the other one is Disney's The Kid.
The Kid.
Disney's The Kid.
Yes.
It's an old Bruce Willis movie back when Bruce Willis had hair. And that would be another really good one to go and look at. And that was before anybody knew anything about family systems therapy, but it's a perfect movie for it that just kind of shows you what that's like. So
100%.
Well, thank you, Jenny.
Thank
you very much for hanging out with us, and we'll do it again sometime soon. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in, and stay tuned. I've got something I want to give you for free coming up in this next segment. Again, another rich conversation. Thank you so much, Jenny, for sharing your wisdom and sharing your heart. So if you're listening and realizing that parts of you feel familiar, the part that gets angry, or the part that shuts down, or the part that tries to control everything, or people please, just know this: you're not broken. You're not failing. You're just a human being. And those parts have been working really hard to protect you, and sometimes even for years. So healing begins when you meet them with compassion instead of shame. So here are some next steps for you. Okay, number one, just download the free guide that you'll see on the link below. The 5 warning signs of unhealed trauma. All right, and then if you're ready to go deeper, then check out the online course 5 Keys to Healing from Trauma, also linked below, and that will walk you through this step-by-step understanding of your parts, regulating your body, and reconnecting you to God and with others. So make sure that you subscribe, okay, to this podcast or the YouTube channel, and you're not going to want to miss some really great episodes coming up. All right, so this is Dr. Pepper and Friends, where grit and grace come together to form wholeheartedness, and we appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next time. And it is time to go fishing.